So my name is Betty Murray. I'm a clinical nutritionist and certified functional medicine practitioner through the Institute for Functional Medicine. And I've been in practice since 2004. And my primary focus is really helping women in their 40s and above overcome the hormonal challenges that we all experience, unfortunately, when we hit our 40s and 50s as we enter into peri and menopause. And that's everything from sort of autoimmune conditions to weight gain, the mood, the sleep, insomnia, and all those other things that sort of go together. I almost exclusively use the Dutch test, a urine test, because to me, if I'm going to go to the trouble of looking at data, I want the most accurate, the most actionable, and for me, the most content. I'm a lab geek, so the more data I have to distinguish what's going on, the better it is. Because I don't think the utility of looking at a lot of hormones, like let's say cortisol, a fasting cortisol is to me a very like low-hanging fruit that doesn't really do much, right? You can get it, but it's not meaningful. So to me, I'd rather have something that's meaningful and actionable. Now, are there times that I might, look at a progesterone or something like that in serum? Potentially. But I'd much rather have the urinary hormones because of the amount of content and data and clinical decision making that can be done from it. I think that most people believe they have to make extraordinary changes in order to make a significant impact on their health. And BJ Fogg showed this in his research, and again we know this. Little tiny habit changes, especially added on to other little tiny habit changes, are where real behavior change and where real health takes you from where you are today to the next level. And so I'd rather have people do a little bit of several different things and do additive effect than try and do one or two things all out and blow off all these other really important pieces, like taking care of sleep and diet and lifestyle and maybe drinking more water. So I think behavior change is small, incremental, and tiny little habit changes. If your future self, so if I could flash forward 20, 30, 40 years, if your future self was able to reach back in time and look and talk to you right now, what do you think your future self would want to experience out of this experience? What do you think they would regret doing if you continue on the same trajectory you have now? Because most people recognize if they're on an unhealthy trajectory, it's going to continue that way. And if you can get them to put themselves in that future tense, looking backwards, often they'll say, oh, wish I would have done this one thing. I'm like, okay, cool. So how do we do that one thing? Let's start there. I had a patient that came in with, fibroid history, heavy periods, crampy periods. Her doctor was recommending, she needed a hysterectomy, and, she really, like many people, it's like, if the parts are still here, I don't know if I necessarily want to take them out. And she was having kind of all the usual suspect problems and a lot of digestive problems on top of that. So on the Dutch test, we're able to look at particularly that hormone metabolism, and the interesting thing was, she was in her 40s, so she had a little bit of naturally occurring estrogen dominance, where that estrogen's a little higher than expected in the luteal phase. Progesterone has already declined. But what was really more telling was that estrogen metabolism pathway. She had genetics and she had those hormone pathways where she was producing a lot of toxic metabolites, the 4-hydroxy. And really, we were able to intervene with dietary change. We did a lot of gut cleanup. My dissertation is actually looking at microbial metabolites that are influenced by the estrogen metabolism. And so, we did a lot of things to kind of clean that pathway up. So interestingly enough, her periods start to get better, the pain starts to go away. And a year and a half later, her fibroids were down to like a third of the size of what they really were. And repeated Dutch tests showed that all of her pathways after we intervened were now sort of going out the right trash can. So we were able to clean up that toxic estrogen metabolite environment, and that really helped in her symptoms.